Before they made it big, a lot of these artists were scraping by trying to make their dreams come to life. Then, once they make it, we plebes assume they're living these insane lavish lifestyles where they're splurging bundles of cash and partying with these beautiful people in their massive mansions. Well, the fact of the matter is, a lot of them are still barely scraping to get by. If they're ever showing themselves wearing crazy jewelry, sporting ridiculous cars, or hanging out with beautiful women, more often than not, it's all a front. In the industry, it's very common to rent out cars, hire women, and even lease jewelry to shoot music videos or simply pull up anywhere where they're gonna make a public appearance. In music especially, it's all about creating an image, whether that's genuine or a complete facade. I mean, I doubt a lot of these artists' fans would be listening to their music if they showed their real colors. This is all just a strategy to cover up what's really going on behind the scenes. Some of the biggest artists we know are actually living paycheck to paycheck, and the reason all boils down to one single culprit. That culprit being the biggest scammer in the music industry: streaming. An artist can have a song of theirs blow up and the amount they get from it is insulting. But what other choice do they have? It's not like they can protest and refuse to release their music on these platforms. If they did, that's the quickest way to kill a career. In the past year, we've seen these artists refuse to release their newest projects on Spotify and Apple Music, and their sales for these projects compared to their prior one that was on streaming are much lower. So artists are in quite the shit situation here. But not all hope is lost. There does in fact lie a golden egg, and it's really the only hope artists have left. In less than a century, we've gone from pressing our music on vinyl to loading it into a cassette to now having the entire music industry loaded onto a piece of 6-inch by 3-inch plastic that fits snugly in our pocket. To understand just how much these streaming platforms are stealing, you need to realize how important the relationship between an artist, their music, and the listener used to be. It all started with the physical era. Artists relied heavily on sales from CDs, vinyl records, and cassettes. They earned royalties through deals with retailers based on the number of units sold. Successful albums could lead to substantial profits, and physical sales were the main source of an artist's income. Labels still took a cut, sure, but also fronted much of the upfront costs. Costs like producing physical copies of albums and then distributing them to retailers. The costs of production, packaging, shipping, and marketing were often taken from the revenue generated by physical sales before artists received their slice of the pie. Outside of that, artists likely gave some form of a cut to the label depending on the contract they had with them. At this point, it sounds like the artist is only getting a tiny sliver of that whole pie, but that still amounted to a huge chunk of change for them. Specifically, it calculated out to somewhere between 15 and 25% of profit off every record sold. Let's take a look at Jay-Z's classic album, The Blueprint, released in 2001. In its first week, the album sold 427,000 units. Each album sold for $20. Profit off each album is $15, so Jay-Z would take home 25% or $3.75 per album. 427,000 of these is 1.6 million he took home. And that's just the first week. The same year The Blueprint released, we were actually on the cusp of an entire new era, leaving the physical one behind. It's 2001, the nation is in shock, the Lakers just won their second championship, a new animated movie Shrek tops box office sales, and a hippie from California invents this thing called the iPod.
That's iPod. I happen to have one right here in my pocket, matter of fact. There it is, right there.
Well, that hippie, Steve Jobs, may have been the only one who truly understood the massive shift he sparked within the music industry. In 2000, CD sales were at their peak with 950 million sold. The following year, when the iPod was introduced, they had their first drop, declining 7%. By 2008, CD sales had declined more than 61% with just 370 million sold, and at this point, the iPod had a successor, the iPhone. Last year, only a mere 37 million CDs were sold, and most were simply sold as part of artists' merch bundling strategy. Originally, the iPod was a simple device, enabling music lovers to listen to their favorite physical albums digitally. Before doing so, they'd have to convert the physical CD into a digital one on their computer. But soon enough, converting music digitally was super simple and free. Well, if you're down to pirate it from a website that you'd come to find out would slowly serve as the kiss of death for your family computer.
Warning, your computer now has AIDS.
Told that more than 2.6 billion songs are downloaded over the internet every month, at least.
Clearly, listeners not paying a cent for music on their iPods would not fly with record labels. And obviously, the industry had to adapt to this new reality. So Steve Jobs took on the daunting task of wrangling the 5 biggest record labels to get their buy-in on a revolutionary idea: iTunes, a platform where their artists would release their music for users to legitimately buy and put on the iPod. However, in the negotiations, there was one hill that Steve Jobs would die on. Artists would sell their albums, sure, but users could also buy just one of their songs for 99 cents. Labels did not like this. You see, up until then, their strategy was putting out albums that had a few really great songs and the rest, just filler to get the thing packaged up and ready to sell. But instead of just buying the few great songs, consumers would have to buy the whole $20 album. Record labels were in a shitty position. Either they take Jobs' offer and lose out on the traditional album sale, or they say, thank you very much, I decline, and users keep stealing their artist's music and Steve Jobs still makes money off iPod sales. Well, they accepted Jobs' terms. In a few years, a whole new era would spawn from this. Fast forward to today. Wait, not that far. There we go. Today we're in the streaming era where we have access to whatever songs we want right here in our pocket. It's the most accessible music has ever been. That is until Elon Neuralinks his own platform right into our consciousness, which I'm sure will include his inevitable album already downloaded, much like the U2 strategy years back. With streaming, everything is immediate. The Kendrick-Drake beef alone—
No! God, please, no!
escalated so quickly. I mean, Kendrick's response to Drake's Family Matters took all of 30 minutes.
Did you hear that?
Drake dropped?
You heard it?
I expected it. I'm uploading now.
The whole thing lasted a couple months. Compare this to the Jay-Z Nas beef, where Nas's response came out 84 days after Jay-Z's takeover. And even further back, Tupac's response, Hit 'Em Up, came out more than a year after Biggie's Who Shot Ya. This shift to immediate access has moved the industry away from ownership-based revenue, like CD sales and digital downloads, towards subscription-based revenue. Spotify and Apple Music are the obvious examples of this. For us, the consumers, it's obviously dope. For artists, it has its negatives and its positives, but compared to the past, it sucks. This transition created huge changes in terms of revenue made for the artist. They now earn money based on the number of streams their songs receive. However, the per stream payout is crazy low compared to what they used to make on traditional sales. On average, an artist will make $4 for every 1,000 streams. So if a mid-tier artist has one of their songs blow up and say gets 1 million views, they'll get $4,000. Before streaming, an artist would earn 99 cents for a song. This same artist would have made a little less than $4 million, while their cut would be about $1 million if signed to a label. And then even further back to album sales, had this artist sold 1 million albums, their cut would have been $5 million. Okay, obviously the same million people who streamed the song in 2024 aren't going to necessarily have bought the whole album if it were the year 2000. But the idea remains, artists are getting ripped off from streaming.
The sales thing, I mean, that shit been stopped like mattering. Like the same 6 artists that stream crazy good, you know. Now the streaming sites are gonna act like bro, it's the same 6 artists, bro. Shut
That's
up.
what I want to say, and it's the same.
Clearly, this isn't a new problem either. Since the dawn of the streaming era, artists have been causing a stir about the revenue splits they've been getting. Jay-Z even started his own streaming service, Tidal. His pitch was that Tidal would offer higher quality sound compared to its competitors while providing artists with a better revenue split. Well, Tidal came and it went. A big misstep was how late it came onto the scene. Jay-Z launched Tidal in 2015. By this time, Spotify pretty much dominated the streaming space, and any market share Tidal hoped to control would be in direct competition with Apple Music, which launched only a couple months after Tidal. Tidal's main selling point for users was making the music sound super clear, which is cool, but I personally remember taking the test to see if I can tell the difference between high and low fidelity music, and I failed terribly. So no way I'm about to dish out an extra $5 a month for this unnecessary luxury. Tidal also tried to stand out by having special stuff you couldn't find elsewhere, like exclusive releases from beloved artists. Okay, this worked on me. I remember T-Lop came out exclusively on Tidal, and at last, I finally had to sign up. Well, sign up for their 1-month free trial, and then as soon as T-Lop came out on Spotify, I just canceled it. Long story short, Tidal failed and went down in flames. When the CEO Andy Chen abruptly resigned, Jay-Z took over as interim CEO, and reports of missed royalty payments and disputes with record labels began surfacing shortly after. Although we're still in the streaming era, I sense that we're heading towards an entire new one that does not include Elon's greatest hits. This is the soundbite era. Similar to Jay-Z's efforts in Tidal, James Blake has begun his own revolution. Recently, he went on a rant on Twitter, or X, or whatever the hell you want to call it, regarding the nature of the TikTok-based content world we live in. He talked about how the speeding up or slowing down of songs that go viral on TikTok is problematic, as the artists tend to get the short end of the deal. Frequently, TikTok doesn't even recognize them as the artist's song, instead labeling these as an original sound, so despite the viralness of it, the artists themselves don't get shit Maybe you've seen that video of Tyla dancing to this viral song. Actually, I don't even need to show it, and I bet you know what I'm talking about. That song is labeled as original sound Gela Gelada by Seal. The actual song though is called Pop Like This Part 2 by this artist. But the original song isn't as slowed down as the viral TikTok one. This alone is why so many artists now release their albums in sped up and slowed down versions. They want to make sure that if a slowed down or sped up version of their song goes viral, the sound is linked to their official release so they can get that cash. Aside from viral sounds, James also mentioned the exploitive nature of streaming services and how they don't provide fair compensation, pointing out how labels are signing artists and taking bigger and bigger cuts as time goes on. They're not focused on the music, they're more focused on getting the artist's songs to go viral over actually encouraging the making and distributing of a quality project. At the end of the day, James Blake just wants artists to be able to make money off their music and be rewarded for the work they put into their craft, instead of this shift towards becoming social media experts to make any kind of name for themselves.
It's cooked because it turned to content. Rappers are just content creators.
Unfortunately for artists, not really for us, it doesn't appear like streaming is going away anytime soon. And if anything, we're diving even deeper into the rabbit hole with this new soundbite era. However, with this new era is also a new opportunity. The golden egg. In all the eras discussed so far, artists have never been at the forefront dictating how the industry will adapt, which is ridiculous given that without the artist, the industry does not exist. In the streaming era, artists were more proactive, and although failed, they attempted to possess more control over how their art is distributed. Now with the availability and total access to music, both listening and artists releasing, record labels have become more and more obsolete. And without artists signed to them, the labels have much less power in controlling the future of the industry than say 30 years ago when an artist had to be signed to a label to get anywhere at all. These days, artists are kind of their own label, and if all artists can band together, they can take the wheel as we head towards this new era. Then finally, we may see some fair revenue splits for the people who are solely responsible for this thing we love called music. If you like this video, please subscribe and share it with a friend. Also check out our other videos right here. Thanks for watching.